I'm Jennifer Purcell, and welcome to my podcast, Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge, where we will discuss, discover, and learn more about the challenges and triumphs of those with NLD and other learning challenges. I do have a website for this podcast, and it is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter account for the podcast. They are all under the same name, which is Living with NLD. I also have a YouTube channel for the podcast, which can be found by Googling the title of the podcast, which is Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. I would like to tell you about a nonprofit that I use for my research for this podcast. It is called the Nbld Project, and I use their blog for my research. They are a nonprofit that is based in New York and is trying to get NBLD back on the DSM, and they provide many resources for people with NBLD on their website. I'll provide you with the website for them in the podcast description. All proceeds from the ads on this podcast will be donated towards the NBLD Project. Please feel free to explore the other topics on the podcast, and hopefully you will learn something new from them. I hope you enjoy today's episodes. And today I am very excited to announce that Betterhelp is now sponsoring this podcast. I have had 7 years of therapy, so I know it can help change your life if you not only let it, but work on the personal goals that you set with your therapist. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are the greatest asset. And special offering to listeners of Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/ I'll put in the link in the podcast description for you. That's BetterHelp, HELEP. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. Also, another announcement that I have to make is I recently created another podcast called Sleepy Butterfly for people who have challenges with sleeping at night or meditating, and it's geared towards people who are auditorily sensitive or have chronic migraines, and being able to have nice relaxing nature sounds for them to fall asleep to or to meditate to and be able to be refreshed the next day or when they come out of their meditation. So some of the sounds are like chimes or nature sounds like water or rainforest. And again, it's called Sleepy Butterfly. It is on Spotify and also Apple Podcast and Google Podcast. And it's on everywhere else where you can get podcasts as well. So I hope you are able to get some benefits out of that one also. Alrighty, so before I begin today's episode on careless versus normal mistakes in NLD, I would like to let you know that the next Facebook chat, we have one today, but the one for May will be on the third Saturday of the month, which is the 21st, and that is from 10 a.m. to 11:30-ish Pacific time zone. And that's, again, just a safe space for you to be able to talk about things that you have challenges with in regards to NLD or another learning challenge you may have. And you don't have to have a learning challenge. You could be a family member who supports one with a learning challenge to be in the group. And anything that is said in the group stays in the group unless you ask that person permission to share it outside of the group. And let me know if you want to come. Again, it's from 10:30 to from 10 to 11:30 Pacific time zone. And I am having one today. I usually have it on Saturdays, but I'm having one today because tomorrow I'm going to be doing some fun things with friends, so I won't be able to do it tomorrow. So I moved it today so that I could still do it. Alrighty, so today's episode is on NLD and careless mistakes versus normal mistakes. Have you ever made what you would consider a careless mistake, or maybe made so many mistakes at work that you get fired or lose count? I have done all of those because of having NLD. I have made many mistakes in my life and at work, big and small ones. I'll give you a few examples. Sorry, I got tongue-tied. I am doing this while my head hurts, so bear with me, please. At work, I've made many mistakes with not proofreading newsletters enough for my mom. I've been working at getting better for over a year with this. And I know that's a long time and too long, but I think it takes a different amount of time for each individual to make a new skill a habit because of how their brain works. Everyone's brain is different, especially if they are neurodiverse. And actually, I was talking about this mistake that I make with my therapist recently, and she said that one of the things that I should try doing is recording myself when I'm proofreading a newsletter for work and see if when I listen to the recording, I can hear anything differently. And I haven't been recording myself, but I do read it out loud, and I'm trying to read it more slowly and read it more than once so that I can catch things more frequently. And I think it's working. You can tell me, Mom, if it's not. I just said that because she listens to the podcast. So one of the other mistakes I made at work was with the social media posts. I need to proofread those too and make sure I have the right facial expressions illustrated in the image that connects with the quote. I've talked about those posts before on this podcast, so you can go back if you want to know more about them. I used to pick images that were too serious, flirtatious, or too sad. Consequently, it used to take me hours to find the right image to go with a quote, and sometimes days. Now it only takes me maybe an hour depending on the quote. And the reason I'm talking about these mistakes that I make at work is because luckily for me, I work for my parents, so my mom has told me she's not going to fire me because she wants me to learn how to do good quality work for a job so that when I go on to work for somebody else, I already know how to do that. And I'm very fortunate and very appreciative of that because then I can learn from my mistakes and have the chance to recover while working for the same person from them. and be able to show them that I am learning and that I am improving, which you don't always get to do depending on the mistake that you make in a job. Sometimes it can get you fired. So now I do have issues with more visual spatial than verbal content. So sorry, I meant with the posts I was talking about. Sometimes I make more mistakes at us with the visual design of it than the verbal content. For example, in one of the posts, there's a phrase, "life is good," on the top of it, and it has been moving around too much from where it was in the beginning of the designing them. So I had to go back to the beginning and use those posts to solve it. I overestimated how long it would take me to fix this mistake. I thought it would take all day, when in reality only took a couple of hours. So now transitioning to the mistakes that I've made in life. And I've made so many that I lost count, which is true for work also. Excuse me. So some of the ones I've made in life are with dating my ex. Shouldn't have done that. Car accidents. Shouldn't have done those either, but I've learned from both of those. And saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. Please listen to the song called "I Learn and I Forget" by Nbld. It is so fitting for this episode. And I feel like it's the soundtrack for people who have NLD in terms of their life. And if you have NLD or you know somebody who does, you might get what I'm saying. All right, enough about me. Now it's time for some quotes from articles. Here's an article titled "5 Mistakes People Make When Interacting with NLDers" by Peter Flom. It is about some of the mistakes neurotypicals can make when interacting with NBLDers. Now, you may think, why am I mentioning mistakes that neurotypicals make when this is a neurodiverse podcast? Well, I want neurotypicals to know that you make mistakes too, and I want neurodiverse people to know that also, so that they don't feel alone, and that sometimes neurotypicals can make mistakes when they're talking to neurodiverse people. So that's why I'm talking about this. All right, so here's the quote from the article. "One mistake you can make is assuming that neurodiverse people are stupid. 2, assuming we're deaf. 3, assuming we're not listening. 4, assuming we're not interested in you. Assuming we're like other spectrum people you know." End quote. That was the last one. And here are my thoughts on it. So we're not stupid. We actually might be smarter or more gifted in some areas than a neurotypical, like in memorization, audio memory, verbal memory, long-term memory, and in some academic areas too. We're not deaf and we aren't listening to you. We might be taking longer to process what you just said to us, though, but that doesn't mean we didn't hear what you said. Or might take longer for us to understand because of trying to interpret a nonverbal cue. We might even listen better than neurotypicals because we can usually remember what you said to us better and for longer than they can. We also tend to be more sensitive than a neurotypical usually is. I'm not saying that neurotypicals don't listen well or aren't sensitive. I'm just saying it's different for them than people who are neurodiverse, because neurodiverse people have a brain that is wired differently than neurotypicals. Just wanted to disclaim that. We're not on the ASD spectrum unless we have NLD and autism at the same time, or NLD and Asperger's. Yes, NLD does have a spectrum in terms of every NLDer experiences the symptoms of it in to a different degree than others, which means that some people have more of a challenge with math than others, some people have more of a challenge with driving than others, and some people have more of a challenge with sports than others or social skills than others. So it is a little bit like autism in that way, where there is a spectrum of how severe one can experience the symptoms of NLD. Mine is pretty mild, but it still exists for me. Here is another article titled Adults with Learning Disability or ADHD Making Stupid, in quotes, mistakes, from idonline.org. Excuse me. Quote, "Hello everyone, I was diagnosed with a visual spatial learning disability in 2009. I was suspected of having full-blown NLD. However, I did not proceed with the remainder of the testing. I'm having a problem that I'm not sure is related. I do things I have already learned how to do wrong. I either do the right thing the wrong way or the wrong thing the right way, or I forget half of whatever it was I was supposed to do. Once I became aware of this problem, I started pausing and asking myself whether what I was doing was really correct. But the answer at the time is always yes. Then a few hours or days later, I will realize my mistake. It does not seem to matter how often I have done the task before or how complicated it is. Is this problem related to NLD or something similar? Is there anything I can do about it? It has gotten worse over the last few years, which has shattered my self-esteem, led to significant anxiety, and put me at risk of losing my job. I'm in need of help, but at this point, I don't know whether I should be contacting a neurologist, a psychologist, or a career counselor." End quote. So I can definitely relate to this blog post because of what I said earlier in the episode with proofreading mistakes I make often. I feel like that post was actually made for me because sometimes when I am in the same cycle of making the same mistake over and over, it can be very discouraging and make me feel helpless because it's like, I don't know what to do differently to make this not happen. And yeah, that's just challenging for me sometimes. So I've learned many lessons from both my mistakes in life and at work. I don't regret making them now because they've made me the person I am today, and for that, I will always be thankful for. I want you to remember that everyone makes mistakes in life, both neurotypicals and neurodiverse people, and probably more so if you have a learning challenge. But that doesn't make you stupid. Not at all. I think it makes you stronger and I would say smarter, because if you learn from them, no matter how many times you make that one mistake, if you at least learn something from it each time you make it, I promise you, speaking of making many mistakes, speaking from that you will get better. And that's what I'm trying to tell myself whenever I make a mistake. That, okay, what can I learn from it this time that I didn't learn last time to improve and to try not to make it again? So anyways, I think making mistakes makes you stronger because you are trying to not make that mistake each time, and that makes you a hard worker. So again, the song I wanted you to listen to was I Learn and I Forget by Nbld. It is a really good song. Please answer this question for this episode, or just think about it. You don't have to answer it. How has the mistakes you've made in life, in your personal or work life, made you the person you are today? And if you want to share your answer, you can answer it on Spotify or email me with it, whichever you prefer. I hope you learned something today, and I will talk to you next Friday. Ciao. And today I am very excited to announce that Betterhelp is now sponsoring this podcast. I have had 7 years of therapy, so I know it can help change your life if you not only let it, but work on the personal goals that you set with your therapist. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's more affordable than in person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are the greatest asset. And special offering to listeners of Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/. I'll put in the link in the podcast description for you. That's BetterHelp, HELEP. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. As I wrap up, there are some things I would like to share with you. I do have a website for this podcast. It is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook and Instagram page for this podcast. It is called Living with NLD. I will include the links for those in the description. In conclusion, I would like to hear from my audience. If you know individuals with NLD that I could interview for this podcast, please email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com. What are you interested in learning about NLD? I know I'm not an expert, but I do know I have the living experience of having it. I would like you to practice journaling about your gifts and differences. Also see if there is a way that you can make that difference become easier for you to do than it originally was. Thank you for listening today, and please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to it. Thank you. Bye.